Good morning, everybody. We really appreciate you being here. I'm excited. I've been looking forward to this all week. I think you'll be rewarded for having gotten up early this morning. We have two of the most influential, the most successful, the most articulate leaders in our industry here this morning with us. So thank you. Thank you both for attending and for offering to speak with us. The two participants in our panel this morning are Sheryl Palmer. She's been CEO of Taylor Morrison, the 5th largest builder in the country since 2007. They did over 13,000 closings in 2021 for over $7 billion in revenue. And we have Phillippe, Meritage Homes, 7th largest builder in the US with over 12,000 closings and over $5 billion in revenue. As you can see, we have Sheryl with us remotely from Atlanta. We really appreciate you still committing, even though the travel plans were in conflict. So thank you so much for doing that. We really appreciate both of you for spending time with us. So with that, I'm going to jump into some of the questions. I'll start maybe with you, Phillippe, in the room. Can you define what risk means to you now and into the future?
So, in our business, 90% of the risk of our business is in land. All right, it's where we make the biggest investments. It takes the longest for us to get it to the market. It has a lot of variability as it relates to getting approvals through the city, putting lots on the ground based on our expectations, and then making sure we underwrote the market and the customer correctly, getting the right product. So we think about land as the biggest risk to our business. I would just say now, as we enter 2023, I think land is very risky, given what's going on with house prices and demand out there. And there's a lot of horizontal costs that have escalated dramatically through the COVID period. So we're very risk averse when it comes to land. We've bought a lot of land prior to this. We like that land, but we think land prices will eventually come down if the market continues to sort of deteriorate, if you will, which is what it looks like it's going to do. And we'll just be very cautious on our approach to land for a while until we get some more visibility into what interest rates are going to do, what house prices are going to do. So I think that's how we're thinking about it.
That makes sense. How about you, Sheryl? How do you think about risk right now?
Yeah, I think Phillippe is spot on. Obviously, we're all thinking about land. I would throw a couple. I think you have to think about the macro, and then you have to think about our industry, and then you have to think about our companies, right? So for macro, we can only control the pieces we can, but there's a lot that's on everybody's mind. So I would add to the list of risk people, because when you think about the consumer state and the environment we're in, so much of what we're going to talk about, I believe today, Peter, is really the state of the consumer and the way they're thinking about the world. It's been a really unique 2 or 3 years. Excuse me, I'm very casual. I am on, like you said, I'm in my Atlanta office. I'm doing a 12-day, 20-market roadshow with my teams across the country. So I'm sorry in our little uniform t-shirt today, but and because people have got to be front and yeah, there you go. Mine's the Morrisons. We're a rock band that are traveling the country. But so, and I'm here because the team is most critical. So when I think about risk, I'm completely aligned with Phillippe about the cost of land and what we're doing. I then put people on the list very, very quickly to make sure that they're all feeling okay and how they can contribute in this kind of environment. And then the last one, just to round it out, I think one of the greatest risks that we're going to we don't fully understand yet is the amount of inventory that's going to grow over the coming months. As you think about, the environment we were in last year, builders put a lot of new inventory in the ground because everyone thought it would be a record year. Things changed in the spring, and then if you couple that with cancellations that have plagued the industry over the last few months, most of that inventory is in flight. So the question for me will be, does that inventory kind of get to the finish line and hang out? Because I think if it does, and we have this pile up, right now there's about 8 months of finished inventory in the new home market across the country. It's not evenly distributed, like always, it's pocket by pocket. I'm not near as concerned about resale inventory because of what's happened to interest rates and how people are locked in their homes. But I think new home inventory could determine what happens to pricing.
That makes a ton of sense. Thank you for that. So, in reaction to that, so maybe Sheryl, if you don't mind, bounce back to you. How are you limiting activities? What does that mean for your metrics? How do you think about that?
Did you say lending activities, Peter?
No, just in general, your activities in response to the pace of build and what you're seeing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you have to stay just focused and nimble, I think, in this environment. I think about what I'm talking to the teams about on this roadshow. Thank you. What I'm talking to the teams about on this roadshow, and it's controlling the pieces we can. And part of that control is really understanding our strategy on land. Philippe's right. I think we're going to see costs come down. And then it's, inventory. How do we continue to pace what inventory? We're both a to-be-built builder as well as a speculative builder. So we've flipped that switch again, making sure that we really engage our consumers and let them pick the house of their dreams on the lot with big deposits. And I think that's how we've allowed to keep our can rates low. But I think as much as anything, it's really about being very nimble, because what happened 6 months ago and what happened with interest rates at, almost 8% is different than when they've dropped back to a low 6, and the way we're communicating. So I think it's staying flexible. This is not, as I've said in the field, this is not our first concert. We've seen this before, and we can be very nimble and responsive, and being responsible in the way we approach the market and our teams.
Yeah, very, very healthy, and certainly corresponds with what we're thinking as well.
Communication has got to be at the top of the list.
Yeah. So I'm going to change gears just for a second. Phillippe, what are the unique complexities of the reseller market that you're watching?
Yeah, so it's interesting, right? There's the long cycle of housing, which, in my opinion, just for everyone, my perspective is the sky's not falling. We're losing a little altitude here, probably needed to. It was running at 1,000 RPMs, which was unsustainable anyway. But there's all these mini cycles inside the longer cycle. And if you think about what happened over the last 15 years, when we came out of the Great Recession, the move-up market was really strong. The entry-level consumer was not really bouncing back as quickly. Then they started to come back into the market. We had a little bit of an interest rate inflection in 2018, and then whatever happened with the last 3 years of COVID. I think this next 2 to 3 years is going to be another mini cycle, and I think it's going to be defined by the resale market, because I think it's going to be very unique to any other time in housing where the resale market is completely locked up for 2 different reasons. The first reason is that everyone that bought a home in the last 10 years has a 4% interest rate. And now interest rates are 5 or 6 or whatever they're going to be, and they're not going to want to go buy a house at a higher interest rate. So it's going to really lock up people as it relates to wanting to sell the house. The second thing is more short term, but everyone saw what their neighbors sold their house for in the last 3 years. And they're just like sitting there going, I'm not going to sell my house for so much less than that with what's going on in the market. So they're not going to sell. And what we're seeing in most of our markets is the resale market is just really, really undersupplied. And I think it's going to continue. And that's going to create an opportunity for us. As this thing starts to bounce back, I think the new home market is going to be a bigger part of the share coming out of this than it typically would in a downturn or a contraction. And it's going to be all about the resale market. So I just don't see a lot of inventory coming. We're not going to see a bunch of foreclosures like we saw the last time. And I think the resale market's going to be really, really slow to bounce back, and the supply is going to be really low. And I think that's why this thing's going to sort of come back faster when it does.
We saw yesterday some very interesting information about the rental markets, some of the dynamics of the way that's played out, and the way that both the mortgage rates as well as the new home construction, the reseller market as well as the rentals will work together. It'll be very fascinating this year as we all manage through that. With that in mind, though, there's still building going to happen. We're still going to be looking at an active market, and everyone in this room understands the challenges that we faced in recent years as it pertains to labor. And so I'm curious what each of you think, and maybe Sheryl, we can start with you, about the labor market. What have you seen? How has that changed? How are you thinking about it?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So if I could, because I think Philippe's comments are so important here, and I agree with kind of what happens in the new home market. I mean, I saw a piece of research, I think last week, from John Burns, which likely everyone knows, that says over the next 10 years, because I think this plays into your question, you know, we're going to need 15.5 million new homes. So I think that gives me a lot of optimism, and also acknowledges that we're still undersupplied. You know, the numbers, depending on what piece of research you read, are quite varied, but his view is we're undersupplied about 1.7. So if you think about 1.5 million homes a year, 15.5 over the next 10 years, we really, really need the labor that we haven't had. You know, I think that's been the governor on what we've been able to build over these last few years. I think builders are getting much smarter. You know, I think Phillippe will talk a lot about simplification and how that helps the trade environment that we're in. Forget the last couple of years. That's been quite unique, as you guys know better than I do. But I'm actually quite delighted that the industry has come together, I would tell you, for the first time historically, to really help solve for our labor crisis. And right at the beginning, right before COVID, actually, we started, I've had the privilege of chairing the Building Talent Foundation. And our goal is to put 100,000 new folks in this industry. And we hit, I think, our 1,500 mark after our first year of training, of really launching the training courses. So I don't think there's going to be a single silver bullet on labor. I think it's going to be a combination of builders really rationalizing their specifications, simplifying, not having 37 SKUs of windows on a product line, really making sure that we can maintain the authentic nature of these homes, but do it in a much more efficient way, and then continuing to train. I think we've gotten a little out of sorts because of, you know, this wasn't just labor, this was a supply crisis that we've been in over these last couple of years. And so it just made everything so much harder. But we have to stay focused on the prize, getting to some normalcy. You know, volumes doubling in a quarter, that's not normal. Nobody can do that. So I think there's a lot ahead, but I'm actually fairly optimistic that I think 23 will be bumpy, but given the needs we have in housing, that we have a lot of good years ahead.
Yeah. Phillippe, your thoughts on labor?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not going to get any easier. I don't see a silver bullet. I think, you know, the investments we're making in certain places to help people develop the labor pool a little bit more, get people more interested in the industry, et cetera. But at the end of the day, I agree with Sheryl that as a builder, the best thing we can do to influence is really to simplify and make our business less complex so that the labor can perform more efficiently. So whether that's in the form of, you know, the way we're building houses, whether it's in the form of what we're putting into our houses, how we're driving our throughputs, how we're developing lots. If we can do that in a different way so that the labor can be more efficient, then I think that's really the solution for now, barring, you know, some other bigger conversations around, you know, political conversations, things like that. But I agree with Sheryl. I don't really have much to add. It's really about that.
Yeah, And we're certainly committed at BFS to investing in that, right? Trying to find ways to solve those labor problems. It's pervasive and certainly limits affordability in terms of what we're trying to accomplish as an industry.
Yeah. I'm excited about some of the stuff we're seeing finally around, off-site construction and things like that, but it's just so early. And some of the stuff just hasn't been around enough for it to really drive the efficiency you need to see. Is it really faster? Can you get it cheaper? Because at the end of the day, it's all about affordability. If rates are going to continue to stay at 5 or 6 or who knows what, it's all about bringing affordable product to the market, because all those people that are looking for a home that Sheryl mentioned, all that building is happening in that price point, under 400,000 in my mind, is really where that underbuilding is happening. So we have to, that construction has to deliver a cost-effective model, and it's just not there yet. It is better. So, you think faster, cheaper, better. It's definitely better. The way it comes together, there's less waste, and there's an opportunity to see that, that it's going to deliver a better product, but it's just got to be faster and affordable as well.
Makes sense. So, Sheryl, you just launched Yardly. Can you tell the audience what it is and why you launched it? And is it helping you to adapt in this market?
Absolutely. Well, it plays really well, Peter, on your questions around labor. So I'll get there in a second, because the simplicity of that product profile certainly helps. Because I think actually on that piece, the one thing that I think I neglected to mention is just planned production, right? If we think about the labor being able to keep up, we need to have some good cadence, and that's hard in the environment we've been on. But Yardly is our build to rent brand that we introduced, like you said, just a number of weeks back. And I would tell you that we started probably 4 or 5 years ago, Peter, looking at our thesis around housing and rooftops. Forget for a moment if we're talking about for sale or for rent, but just the fact that we have continued to underbuild for more than a decade. And home ownership isn't for everybody. It's for many, but it's not for everyone, and for different reasons. As you look at the generational shifts, we're seeing some different behaviors. But once again, I would never say, I think years ago it was like millennials won't buy. Millennials will absolutely buy. But some of them don't want to buy because they want that flexibility. Some of it may be financial. So the thesis became very clear that we needed to have a rental profile product. And then it was, okay, well, what's the best way to execute on that? And then we started looking at those opportunities. And what Yardly is really horizontal apartments. So it's single map. Generally, our communities are 175 to 250 homes. They're gated communities with a lifestyle, but they're on a single map, and they will always be rental product. And so I differentiate that from the SFR term that people are talking about, where that's builders are building some of their product and selling it to single family rental investors who are then renting it. And then at some point, maybe we'll flip it into a for sale product. Ours are single maps, so they'll always be. And if you think about it, what we do as a home builder is we buy land, we develop it, we build houses. So we still do all those things. And then what we're going to do is rent it. And what it really is a couple things for us. One, it's kind of an incubation kitchen from the building science standpoint, because we get to build all this product. They're 2-bedroom, 1,000 square foot homes that we get to build in a row. Customers aren't slowing down that process. I hate to say it that way, because we don't introduce the customer until we go to rent the unit. So we're able to do it very quickly. So it gives us a great opportunity to look at building techniques and opportunities. And then from a sales and marketing standpoint, we build that brand loyalty with Taylor Morrison, and then we can take them from that rental community to possibly helping them get into their first home. So many advantages. We're very excited. We've just sold and closed our first asset, and we have thousands of lots now controlled across the country, and a number of them in flight.
Great, great. We wish you the best of luck with the new project. It sounds exciting.
Thank you.
So this week we've spent a lot of time talking about culture. We talked about it a little bit in our pre-session, and I'd just like to give you both an opportunity to talk about kind of what it means to you, maybe give some examples about how you're managing culture day to day, you know, and especially in sort of the timeline that we're in right now and the challenges in front of us. Phillippe, would you start?
Yeah. It's frankly all I think about, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we're only as good as the folks working for us and how we deliver value to them as a leadership team, how we support them, how we clear the noise and allow them to perform their best. So that's your culture in my mind. Your culture is defined by, you know, when you ask your folks, hey, you know, why do you like working for Meritage? And they tell you, you know, the leadership team, you know, gives me everything I need to be successful, whatever that is. And what I've learned, I've only been in this role for a couple of years, but one of the things I've learned is that the answer to that question isn't the same for everybody. And a lot of companies, they just want to deliver value to everybody the same way. And not everyone's wired the same. Not everyone's needs are the same. So the work we're doing on our culture is how do we meet people where they are? For example, we work from home, our entire organization. Let me tell you a little story about how we got here. So I think all of us know how we started working from home. But as we worked through it, we, somewhere whenever we felt like we could keep everyone safe, we said, hey, look, come back to work if you want. If you don't, you know, talk to your manager, set your schedule up, and work that way. But we're going to make it 100% voluntary if you want to come back. And we're going to manage performance a different way. Because for most part, people, they want to do a good job. They take pride in what they do, and they work really hard at it. And they probably know what's best for them to do that. You know, so we let everyone come back voluntarily. In about 30 days, do you know how many people were coming back to work in a voluntary state at Meritage Homes? Almost 85% on their own, with their own schedule, working through their leader, how things worked best for them. So we just kept running it down the road, and we're still in this voluntary state. Everyone has different schedules. Everyone's learning to work through it, come together when they need to, connect how they need to, and our culture's never been stronger. Never been stronger. We just did an engagement survey, and it was unbelievable. I was just thrilled what people felt about this. And so, you know, a lot of people are saying, you know, that's not allowing your culture to be stronger by people working from home. I don't agree. I don't agree at all. I just think it's harder as leaders to make it all work. And leaders are lazy. I'm just going to tell you. They work so hard to get to this leadership position, and now they got the big office and they don't want to work hard anymore. But I'll tell you what, it just takes more work as a leader to meet people where they are, and that's what leaders should do, so that the people can do their work and can drive the company forward and make the company as great as it is. I didn't do anything at Meritage Homes. All the people that work for Meritage made Meritage great, and it's just my job to give them the support they need. And they're telling me they want to work from home and have flexibility. Let's go.
You cut me, man. You cut me deep.
Sorry.
Sheryl, how about you? You want to talk about culture?
Sure, it's my favorite topic, you know, like Phillippe. Without a culture, you don't really have a company. You know, it's interesting. Part of this roadshow we're on right now, our band, is kind of recalibrating something we introduced pre-COVID, and that was what we call Love the Customer. And you might imagine, I'm using the love word in construction. I don't get to see the audience right now, but I'm sure there's lots of eyes rolling. It's not something that's typical in our industry. And when we introduced it a few years ago, it was about both internal and our external customers. It's about how we treat, the respect we have for each other. It's how we communicate, because without communication, people kind of make it up on their own. And then it's what are our expectations about how we treat our customer. I'm so proud of our organization because there's so much passion. I mean, it's such a heartbeat in the company about the way we treat each other. But recognizing the environment that we've been in the last couple years, I felt that we needed to recalibrate what love the customer means, because it's been hard. It's been really hard. So this tour is about celebrating that we just won the Most Trusted Builder again, but it's really about calibrating how we treat each other and our customers. And in the last meeting I was just in, I think he said it all. There was a gentleman at the end in our Q&A who said, I was one of those people 3 years ago that rolled my eyes and said, I don't know what the heck she's talking about. This might be not be the place for me. And he said, I've worked at 4 builders. I've been doing this for 30 years. We're different, and we're different because of our people. And it's an attitude, it's a choice, it's respect. One of the things, and I am sorry to use this language, but one of the things we have in our organization is a no asshole rule. And that doesn't mean that you don't have very difficult conversations. It doesn't mean that you can't have those discussions about some of the things that aren't going well. It means that you always treat people with respect. And if you treat each other with respect, they treat your customers with respect. I think the only other thing I'd mention, Peter, is the workforce is changing, as I think Phillippe pointed out. And I think that people are looking for meaning in their work, a sense of purpose. And I think all of these pieces play into their relationship and engagement with an organization. So keep talking about it, walk the talk, and it's amazing. It's amazing what can happen. So proud of our team.
Yeah, Daniel Coyle, who I'm sure most people are familiar with, but he talks about no brilliant jerks. And when Sheryl just said that, that's what I thought about was no, because usually
That's where we started, but we've gotten a little bit more crude.
usually the problem people are the smartest ones, but they're the worst with EQ.
Yeah.
Sure. So one of the things you mentioned at the end there, Sheryl, is definitely resonates with builders as a company. You know, we're very much engaged in charitable works in our communities, very committed to LLS and some of the work that we've done. And I'm curious how each of you see that in terms of your organizations and how it plays a part in how you interact with your communities. You start, Phillippe?
Me? Yeah. It's just a big part of who we are is finding ways to give back to the communities that we build in, finding ways to give back to the causes that are important to the folks that work for us. You know, there's always things that are going on. You know, we always try to put a certain amount of dollars away to invest in, you know, like when there's a hurricane that goes through Florida, we want to give money to help the people get through that. When there's a freeze in Texas and different things like that, we always want to support stuff like that. We do a lot with, we usually pick one cause. We go out to all the folks that work for us and say, hey, what is this cause that we want to be a part of this year? And last year it was No Child Goes Hungry, which was providing food for families that, you know, really can't provide the necessary food to their children. And so we spent the whole year, you know, working with that organization. We wrote a big check to them, and then we had all of our divisions go out and participate locally. And that was really something that I was really proud of. The thing that we do that gets the most energy, though, is Operation Homefront, which is we build 2 or 3 houses every year, mortgage-free for a military family. And it's so interesting. We have a president's meeting where we bring all of our leaders together in the spring, and everyone wants to know who gets to do it this year. And there's just so much pride in the organization to be the division that's going to build that home for that military family. We build it all year, and then we give it away on Veterans Day, and it's 100% mortgage free. We work with an organization called Operation Homefront, and they identify the family, and then they bring that family to the home. So we do that every year, and we have a Meritage Foundation, and every year we just put forth different dollars and different efforts to support our communities, and it's just a big part of who we are and what we do.
That's really impressive. That's such a wonderful way for your company to give back.
Yeah, I mean, I think all home builders, we are really successful because of the communities, right, and the people, and so, giving back is just the right thing to do. I mean, Sheryl and her company really set the bar on this, so I'm sure she has a lot to talk about.
Sheryl, you want to talk to us a little bit?
No, thank you. That's on a kind Phillippe, but I think what you guys do is so impressive, so congratulations. I think he said it so well. It's about what the team wants. So what we do is we look for ways to let the organization engage, Peter. I'll give a couple examples, like Political Action Committee. We have a Political Action Committee, and that's key to making a difference as an organization in DC. So we encourage our team members to participate, but when they do, we do dollar for dollar matches. So at the end of every year, we take everything that our teams by division, and then we match it corporately, but we match it to give to charity. So each division selects what charities that they want to participate in. As it turns out, so many of our groups across the country, not all of them, but so many, participate in Homemade America, and that's helping build housing for the homeless. And so I've just watched our whole organization really, really embrace. Probably two others that I would mention. One is every year, and we just finished it, we go through the organization and we ask, if we gave you money to put into your community, what would you do with that? And we get hundreds of write-ups, and we pick generally somewhere between 10 to 20. We give them, depending on the cause, $1,000, couple thousand, $5,000, and they go build joy. It's called our Build Joy campaign. They go build joy in that very local community. And it's just one person submits it, but the whole division gets behind it. I've watched the whole division build desks for schools. I've watched it for children's causes. I mean, it's across the board. So it allows us to reach really, really far. And then the one that we've just engaged in or just announced over the last few weeks, I'm so proud of, it's with our participation with the Waste Management Tournament. And that's such a charitable cause, and we're the presenting sponsor. And every year that we're the sponsor, we're going to be building homes with Banner. We're going to be building homes on site for Banner Hospital for their cancer patients that travel afar. And they need to stay someplace for 6 or 8 weeks because they have to be in the hospital like for 15 minutes a day. And that's almost impossible for many families. And sometimes it doesn't allow them to get the care they need. So we're going to build a campus of 16 homes for families to stay while their loved ones are getting cancer treatment.
Wow, that's really amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I think that we certainly work in an industry with a lot of heart, with a lot of willingness to give back and contribute to society.
We're very fortunate.
We are. So on a related note, kind of my last prepared question, these conversations about giving back to the community are certainly part of what we who have to talk to the outside world call ESG. Right, the environmental, social, and governance issues. And I guess my parting question for you is on the E side, and if you have any thoughts about kind of the current developments of green and what's happening in the world around you, the things you're excited about maybe in the space. It's certainly been a topic for us this week, and if there's anything you wanted to throw in there at the end for us.
I'm laughing because we've been having a heated conversation around our organization about electric stoves. And I don't know about all of you, but my significant other would hate an electric stove. Just saying, she's not a fan. You know.
So your comment there is there was some, there was a news story about gas stoves being problematic and a push towards electric, right?
Yeah, it keeps me up at night. So I would just say a few things. You know, at Meritage, we've been trying to build really sustainable housing for a long time. It's been a kind of, coming out of the Great Recession, we kind of reinvented ourselves and really focused on building a really good home, which I think we do. I think a lot of builders build a really good home. The new homes are so much more sustainable and efficient than old homes. I like to call them used homes because you know, no one wants a used home. But so there's all this focus on the new homes and how we're building homes, and they're continuing to layer regulation on regulation that's going to make it more expensive to build houses. The houses aren't going to be that much better, and most importantly, the consumer isn't going to see the value. The energy should be focused on the old homes, the used homes, because that's where the carbon footprint is the problem. That's where the efficiencies are the issue. But they don't want to go and tackle that monster because it's a monster. So they're going to focus their energy on the new home, the small 15% of the market that is already building homes in a very sustainable and energy efficient way. So, you know, my opinion is we're going to do only what we have to in this space because we already build a really great home, and we're going to focus on the things that the consumers are going to value, and we're going to try to, you know, resist the things that don't make any sense, like electric stoves.
I think you may have hit a chord there, Phillippe. Sheryl, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, thank you. And I think Meritage has been a leader in the space for years. And when we look at the E part of ESG, you know, there's regulatory requirements, and we're all looking at doing what makes sense. But I think the point that Phillippe made, 2 points. One, you know, when you think about the resale or used homes, as he called them, he's spot on. That's where the opportunity is. I had the pleasure or privilege of being on a UK board for many years because our old parent was a UK company. And I was on that board for 8, 9 years, and they are so much further advanced and sophisticated, and all their resources have been spent on trying to change the impact of what resale homes do to the market through government cost advantages, tax cuts, and they've actually really been able to move the needle, and we could take a page out of that playbook. But in the meantime, because I agree with him, we've got a long way before we're going to see that happen here. I think we just as an industry have to remain remarkably cautious about understanding what the consumer wants and is willing to pay for, because you go into these more turbulent times and you can't just keep loading up the home. So we're going to do the right things. We're going to do the things the customer wants and make sure we keep very well define the impacts that it's having, show the customer the cost advantages. There is a small slice of the consumer that this is really important to, and then there's others that expect it. And we just have to keep the priorities straight.
That makes a ton of sense. It does. So those are all my questions for today. I would like to say thank you to both of our panelists. It was a wonderful conversation. We appreciate your insights. Good luck out there this year. And thank you all for attending.